Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We have our first viewer for the Q&A live, the only viewer so far. If you just bear with me, I'm just going to be sending out the link. And apologies for being slightly late. Some Wi-Fi issues with some unfortunate timing. If you just give us a minute or so, we'll send out the link and then we'll commence the Q&A. And I'll explain the format too. So for those that have tuned in, this is Jasveer Singh. I'm the Senior Press Officer of the Sikh Press Association, and today I am just answering questions about the work that we do commemorating 5 years of the Sikh Press Association. So right now I'm just sharing the link to the YouTube Live, and we'll take it from there. If you do have any questions, you can place them in the chat. And I'm going to make sure that the chat is working as well. But please do feel free to drop any questions, drop any comments, and we will answer as many as we can. And like I said, I'm just sharing the link, so just give me a second. So just sharing the link out wide so we can get a few more people to tune in, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for starting the questions. I'll be answering the questions that are popping up on the live feed first, and any questions that we have had following, I will that have come through social media, I'll ask afterwards, just so you guys can directly interact and engage. As I mentioned, I'm just very quickly sharing out the link, as this is being done directly from my phone, so I'm the so I need to share the link directly from here. Okay, I think we'll get the Q&A started, though I did see a question. This is the first time we've done this, so forgive us for any issues in regards to how quick we're being, but we're going to get this started, and we're going to start answering questions now. So the first question that I saw was, let me just bring that up. Okay, so what has been one of the most challenging topics? Okay, actually, before I answer the question, let me just quickly do an introduction. So my name is Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasveer Singh. I'm the Sikh Press Association Senior Press Officer. I've been the Senior Press Officer since 2017. I've been a Press Officer at the Sikh Press Association since 2015. So since we started for the full 5 years. The Sikh Press Association, we actually started in 2014. It was co-founding between Bhai Jugraj Singh, the late Bhai Jugraj Singh, that everyone knows from Basics of Sikhi, hopefully, and Rupinder Kaur. Rupinder Kaur is a very experienced Sikh public relations professional, a PR professional, and Jugraj Singh put out a call in 2014 to speak with somebody that was Sikh, that had lots of experience in media and public relations. He ended up connecting with Rupinder Kaur. At the time, as a freelance journalist myself, I was working with Rupinder Kaur on several other projects, and she directed me towards the Sikh Press Association, saying that she thinks it would be something that I'd be interested in and something that would suit me. And so in 2014, we did a few ad hoc projects, And following these projects in 2015, the charity Everything's 13 decided to fund the Sikh Press Association as a full-time organization. We launched officially with the EY Sikh Network in February 2015, and in April 2015, I became the first full-time employee that would be working daily with the Sikh Press Association. So today is a Q&A to Mark turning 5. Like I just said, we did actually turn 5 last month. We do usually hold an annual review. The annual review, of course, because of the pandemic, we don't know whether we will be able to hold an annual review. So instead of an annual review, which is a public open event where anyone can come and ask us questions and see the work that we've done over the last year, instead of that, we are simply going to be doing this live Q&A. So hopefully you guys can join in with your questions, see if there's anything else I missed. So just about the Sikh Press Association again. So we are powered by the charity Everything's 13. Everything's 13 also power Basics of Sikhi, Kiddie Sangat and Mighty Khalsa. And for any donations, you can donate for our projects at everything13.org/donate. Very easy, everything13.org/donate. Now I'm going to finally get to the questions. Apologies for anyone that was bored by this and just wants me to answer questions, but I'll get straight to the questions now. So the first question from Al-Kakhoz. What has been one of the most challenging topics you have had to highlight or report? Okay, so the case of Jagtar Singh Johal, aka the Free Jaggi Now campaign, is definitely one of the most challenging topics we've had to write on. There have been quite a few, but I'll start with that. That's been challenging for various reasons. It's been challenging because, firstly, as an organization that tries to be Pantik, as an organization that is engaged with the Sangat, it's a case that hits close to home. We realized with what Jaggi was doing, it's not too dissimilar from the work that we do at the Sikh Press Association, and that makes it all the more real. His case, it makes it all the more real for us at the Sikh Press Association, and then about our own safety when it comes to going to India and being in India. Furthermore, we get our information largely through speaking to his brother, and of course his brother, you know, the case, how could it not be, is very close to him, is very personal to him, and that translates when we engage with him. So it's hard to work on such a case without being emotionally invested, and we are emotionally invested. Jagtar Singh Johal, he's our brother, he's our family, and also from the perspective, not just that we feel close to the situation, but that sometimes we feel that, you know, the Western media, it's a difficult topic to push in the Western media, just put it that way. So it is very difficult for various reasons that, you know, I could speak for a whole hour on just that, and I actually would be happy to do so. We've done workshops for the Free Jaggi Now campaign, and we'd be happy to do them again. So if anyone wants us to do something like this specifically about the case of Jagtar Singh Johal, the Free Jaggi Now campaign, we'd be happy to do so. But that's one of the most challenging topics that we work on. And the other one I will just mention is the case of the Afghan Sikh community in Afghanistan and their treatment. So, for example, I'm sure everyone that's tuning in is aware of the recent ISIS attack that happened in late March on them. It's quite difficult to know the situation and to be receiving these quite graphic images, and, you know that children as young as 3 years old have been targeted by Islamic extremists and killed, and try and just deal with this without, again, becoming emotional about their plight. So that's two of the most difficult topics that we work on for Al-Kakor, is the Free Jaggi Now campaign and the case of Afghan Sikhs in Afghanistan. When do we expect Gurdwaras to open? I mean, this depends on, that's the next question from a poster called For the Viewers. We get our information from the kind of leadership organizations across the world. So we'll be looking out for example, in Canada, the World Sikh Organization, in the UK, Sikh Council UK. I know that these kind of organizations in America, perhaps the Sikh Coalition, the Garda movement, will be looking out for their posts about this kind of thing. So we just relay that information. We're not directly involved in helping Gurdwaras to open during this pandemic, and we'll just be relaying that information. But it'll be different in different countries, and I think some of them you'll see quicker than others. So I think, very soon we'll be seeing Gurdwaras be open to the Sangat with protocols designed to kind of maintain that social distancing. So we're all dealing with the pandemic correctly. And yeah, hopefully, that we'll all be able to get Guru Maharaj's darshan soon. And I think a date that has been kind of fixated on by the Sikh Council, in a good way that is the date of the Shahidi of Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj. So not a specific answer there on when Gurdwaras expect to open. Okay, Alka Cause, it took a while to get the link. Yep, apologies. Been clapping for the NHS. Well, well done for clapping for the NHS. That's why people delayed in joining. Perhaps they just didn't see us online for the first 5 minutes and haven't been joining in. But it's okay, we're getting busier, and I'm sure people are sending around a message. In fact, I'm just going to put it on WhatsApp quickly as well, so more people can tune in, because I know that there were quite a few people that wanted to join in and ask questions. Just give me a second and I'll get to the rest of the questions. Sharing there. And sharing in just some of the groups I'm in with various Sikh speakers and advocates. Okay, getting back to the questions. Do you volunteer in Sikh camps? No, I don't volunteer in Sikh camps. My role is quite specific when in regards to kind of working for the Sikh community, the Sikh Qawm, the Panth. My skills lie in media. If any Sikh camps do want to do anything in regards to media, hold a media workshop, I'm always available. We have discussed this at doing it at the Basics of Sikhi camp. Basics of Sikhi are like a sister organization to the Sikh Press Association. We work hand in hand, but I think sometimes Sikh camps, it's better to kind of, focus on Gurmat as well. The Sikh Press Association, we definitely focus on worldly things more than kind of, the deeper and perhaps better aspects of connecting in Sikhi. So we don't volunteer in Sikhi camps, but we'd be up for it. So if there's anyone watching that wants a media workshop at a Sikhi camp, get in touch and we'll definitely be delighted to join in. But again, our specific role is on the media. What organizations or members of the Sangat who work for companies of any size do to assist Sikh PA? Quite a broad question, because we work with so much of the Sangat that I could name countless people that work for different organizations or companies that assist Sikh PA in many ways. Like I could be here all day, I could be mentioning people from all over the world. But in terms of the specific Sikh PA core team and our kind of actual setup, we have an advisory board. So I'll explain the structure. We have, firstly, at the top, the Everything's 13 management. That's the good Sikhs of the charity Everything's 13. And then we have our staff, which is myself. I'm the senior press officer, Jasveer Singh. We have my colleague, Devinder Pal Singh, who's also a press officer who I work alongside with. We have some regular servidars, like our previous press officer, Sukhvinder Singh Sodhi, who is no longer an employee but is a regular servidar. There's quite a few others that I could mention. I don't want to start in case I miss out anyone and don't want to upset anyone. But then we also have an advisory board. The advisory board is made up of a different group of various skilled professionals, from media professionals to management professionals, all at a high level in kind of the corporate business and media world. And they help to advise the Sikh Press Association on certain topics or give us guidance or influence when it is required. And they work for various companies, as the question asked. To find out more, we always hand out leaflets about our organization, and we still have many more that we could perhaps send out. And perhaps we'll put something out about the advisory board, although we've had a few changes, so we'd need to update that But yeah, we have an advisory board that work for various companies, but there's so many people that help us out. I really couldn't sit here and start naming them. Thank you. Keep up the great work. That's appreciated. Thank you, Banji. It would be good to know more about the challenges faced within regards to, sorry, let me just raise up the chat. Good to know more about the challenges faced with regards to talking to the media about the Jaggi trial. Thanks. Okay, like I said, I could definitely do a whole hour just speaking about the case of Jagdar Singh Johal, the Free Jaggi Now campaign. And to be honest, it's heartening for me to see people ask about the case, because when I go, when we engage with Sangat at grassroots level, it's one of the topics that is most readily brought up. And I don't often see that reflected in our kind of highest positions when it comes to engagement with, say, the UK government and Sikh organizations. So I think it's important that Sangat do remain vocal on asking about the Jaggi case, not just to me, but to any of our Sikh representatives. Okay, so some of the challenges, I think firstly, we have to recognize that the Jaggi case is directly conflicting with a slew of propaganda from the Indian state. And the National Sikh Youth Federation have a brilliant report about this, which really should be in the hands of every Sikh that thinks they're an activist in the world in any form. And that's called Criminalizing Sikh Dissent, created with the Sikh Liberation Front. And it goes into how any sort of dissent, any sort of activism has been criminalized by the Indian state. I feel the narrative of that has filtered through media into kind of the Western state. So anyone that might be supportive of our Shaheeds, especially the Shaheeds of 1984 and around that time period, that fought against the Indian state, when of course the Indian state were inflicting the Sikh genocide upon us, not just in 1984, but throughout the 80s and 90s. Anyone that's vocal on that and say the movement for Khalistan, they are kind of criminalized, and these are seen as kind of, terror movements, when in reality this was people fighting for their survival. So that's been tied into the case of Jaggi, and that's become difficult because they portray this issue as something like Sikhs versus Hindus, and some of the language around the case in media has reflected that. For example, they would refer to some of the cases involving Hindu faith leaders. These weren't Hindu faith leaders at all that were involved in some of the cases, and it's quite complex, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But for example, it's been highlighted to us, these were RSS nationalist figures. These are people that are very, very extreme right-wing nationalists, people that were vocal on prompting things which would lead to, let's say, attacks on the Muslim community. And when the Sikh community comes into conflict with them, it's because our ideologies just don't match. This kind of conflict is natural when you think about what they are espousing and what the Sikh community are kind of what we live for. And trying to put that into the narrative when it comes to media is very difficult. It's also just the basics of trying to get people of media interested in the case. I mean, I have to be frank, if we weigh this up against the case of the Free Nazneen case, Nazneen being a British citizen that is being detained in Iran currently on spying allegations, and around the same period, I think just a few months prior to, or was it a year prior to Jaggi, and I think he doesn't get the same kind of coverage or clout just because he's a brown guy with a beard. His brother, again, another brown guy with a beard and a turban, who is the kind of face of the campaign, speaking on his situation. Is the media just don't seem to have the same kind of will to cover his story, despite how much we push. I think there is also the issue of the fact that the UK establishment very clearly, and this was said by Jaggi's constituent, Jaggi's local MP, Martin Doherty Hughes, that his case, his freedom is being sacrificed on the altar of trade with India by the UK. So the UK is being accused of putting trade first when it comes to a situation. And that's a common theme that we'll see in Sikh history when it comes to working with UK or working in between the UK government and the Indian state. So I feel like people don't want to speak about it. And personally, from my personal experiences, I know for a fact some of the highest level MPs, politicians in the UK, they do not want to be asked about these questions. And I do wish I could get into this further. And if we want to make something specific about the Jaggi case, I'd be happy to do that. But I'm going to move on now. But those are just a few of the difficulties with the Jaggi case, the Indian propaganda narrative, and the issue of trade being seen as more important, and the fact that this is just kind of, a random brown guy speaking about Sikh activism. It's hard to make the average person care about that. Okay, moving on. Thank you for that question. Digital security. Have you got any international tours plans after you come out of lockdown? International tours makes it seem like we're some sort of we're a rock band or something. Definitely not, but I know what you mean. Do we plan to kind of engage wider? We definitely do. We've actually held 2 media workshops in Canada previously, one in Ontario, Dixie Road, Gurdwara, and one in, I believe it was the Guru Nanak School in Surrey in Vancouver, BC. So we're more than open to doing something like this. If Sangat ever want to get in touch, if you want our help or support, of course, we do have to bear in mind that working for a Sikh charity, we can't be lavish with our funds. We can't be spending just to send me out to a fancy country just because I want it, want to go abroad. But we are more than happy to engage in any way. We've got technology nowadays where we can kind of engage with anyone from anywhere around the world to give advice in media, to help you with your projects and campaigns. So anyone that wants support from it overseas, please do get in touch. And this is something we do regularly, to be honest. Just last week we helped Sangat in Florida, USA, get their server that they're doing for the pandemic on the national TV in the USA. So we're used to working in countries like Australia, the United States, Canada, and India. And so if anyone from those countries wants to engage with us, just reach out. The address would be media@sikhpa.com. So that's media@sikhpa.com. Nice and simple. What Sikh PA plans and objectives for the next few years is the next question. I just want to make sure I haven't missed out any questions. Just give me a second. Yeah, okay, so no more questions. Okay, what Sikh PA plans and objectives for the next few years? Okay, so we've just turned 5 years old this year. And with that in mind, looking back at the last 5 years, what we've done, we've kind of really set the structure for the Sikh Press Association and how we should be working in accordance with the vision that Bhai Jagraj Singh laid out for us, and in accordance, of course, with the way the Panth is already working, and what kind of tools and mechanisms there are in the Panth that we can work with. So now that we've kind of set this foundation, we need to build off it, and we need to start doing a few more things. So our plans and objectives, firstly, to be based in Canada firstly, as well as the UK. So we're already based in the UK, where we do the bulk of our work. To be based out in Canada and have a full-time press officer here in Canada. I say here because I'm actually in Canada. I'm going to be living in Canada full-time soon. So if the logistics work out, if any Canadian organizations want to connect with us, then it'd be great for us to work here full-time, or for me to work here full-time and do the same job. But we're exploring that. And further objectives is we want a press officer in every single country where there is Sangat, basically, en masse. So that includes the obvious countries: USA, Australia, Malaysia, Thailand, of course, India, and that's the objective. In the next 5 years, we want to start focusing on expanding, essentially, so we can do this server wider for the Panth. And I would say the other side is, I think the Sikh Press Association, it'd be great if we could create more of our content, and it'd be of our own content. So that means empowering our writers, our artists, our filmmakers, and using them, their creativity, their brilliance to align with the work that we're doing at the Sikh Press Association. That's something we would like to focus on, creating more of our own content at a speedier rate. And finally, I think it'd be good to set out a template where we can have correspondents that may just be doing it as Seva that would work for us all over the world. But the thing is, with media, it is very difficult because stories come and go just like that. The age of kind of we're in with media now means a story might only be relevant for an hour. You know, it's 24-hour news nowadays. Like literally, most people will be aware that you have news channels that are just on 24 hours a day. So they're on every single hour and they're looking for content, but the opportunities come and go very quickly. So if anyone does want to kind of step forward to help to do this as Seva, just bear that in mind. But we want to start doing that because from our position, having such a small team, we've never had more than 2 staff at the same time. It's quite difficult to manage. So just bear that in mind. But objectives, more content based in other countries and more correspondence. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think that's it with the live questions at the minute. But like I said, we did get I think up to about 30 through Instagram and other social media. So I'm just going to bring up some of those questions. If you just give me a second. So I'm answering questions now that were sent to us in via Instagram and Facebook, and I think a couple on Twitter. I'm not going to be naming the people that have asked these questions, I think, to save time, and I am paraphrasing some of these questions, so just bear that in mind for anyone who sent in any of these questions. Hopefully no one minds me having a sip of coffee as I do this. Okay, so answering the first question, that these are just at random that were sent to us via Instagram and Facebook and so forth, as I said. So do Sikh PA face issues with the older generation, i.e. Gurdwara committees? And that's an interesting question because we have spoken about before publicly, especially when it came to kind of Anand Garage protests, that there can be a conflict between a younger generation that perhaps has kind of learned about Sikhi in a different way, and the Sikhi that they learned about is often not reflected in perhaps the way a Gurdwara is managed. And that's not the case across the board, but that can be an issue, and it has been an issue, and we can't deny that. And people usually relay that to the fact that Gurdwara committees are of a senior age and perhaps don't understand kind of, you know, what the younger generation wants to do and how they perceive a Gurdwara should be run. Do we have an issue with that kind of obstacle? Sometimes, yes, we do. I'll give an example. When there were protests about, so-called interfaith marriages, which is no longer an issue, it hasn't been an issue since 2016. But when this was an issue, we tried our best to kind of connect with the Gurdwaras that were involved in this and help them and help mediate and help them put out any kind of statements and, just facilitate to ensure that they're not demonizing a large section of our community, which that believes, perhaps rightly so, if you listen to the Prachadaks, that an Anand Garage is for 2 Sikhs. There wasn't, from my perspective, enough engagement from Gurdwara committees there for us to kind of work with each other and help play down how bad of a situation this was, because I feel it was very readily played up. You're talking about 5 incidents ever, and people were making out like this was some big issue of Sikh extremism because people were doing peaceful protests, and police reacted in a way which was inflamed as well. And that's the kind of thing that we want to help Gurdwaras avoid by facilitating. Furthermore, going back to the Free Jaggi Now campaign, I have spoken to Gurdwaras before and said it would be really helpful if some of our bigger ones did kind of jump on the topic and publicly speak about it, especially because they do engage with like the Indian High Commission often and politicians often. So that doesn't seem to have translated and connected with them. I think just on a very basic level, then, just to summarize about Gurdwara committees, they need to recognize that we're here to work for them. Literally, we will work for them. We will take their objectives and what they want to do, and we'll make sure that kind of, they don't conflict with what's going on with the Bant from our grassroots kind of understanding. So we have faced an issue, and I think, if anyone is watching that could help in that area, just want to say that, we're the Sikh Press Association, we are a tool of the Bant, we are a tool of the Qawm, we work for you guys. So anyone can reach out to us, anyone can try and speak to us for your objectives and just get in touch. And Gurdwara committees have not been doing that enough. Although I do have to say, there have been various groups that have been supportive. GNG Smedic have helped us do many events at their Gurdwara before, always on hand to be helpful. We've got regular dialogue with the guys at Siri Guru Singh Sabha Southwell, the East London Singh Sabha committee as well. They're actually fantastic. They're really, really helpful, I have to say, the East London guys. And Gravesend, the current committee at Gravesend, Guru Nanak Gurdwara too, we've got good dialogue with some of these Gurdwara. So it's not across the board. But yeah, let's move on to the next question. I'm going to go look back at the chat to see if anyone's asked questions. I'm answering questions that were sent on Instagram currently. Let me see if there's any other questions that have been sent in. No other questions so far, so I'm just going back to the questions that were sent via Instagram and Facebook. The biggest crisis in the Bant, firstly for the UK and secondly for the world. Probably a question that's beyond my remit to answer, but since I've got 5 years of working for, what I perceive as the Bant, I'll try my best to answer just from a personal perspective, and then I'll also speak on a Sikh PA perspective. But from a personal perspective, I think there's two major things that we need to address that would be quite simple to address. And firstly, that's the kind of physical fitness / discipline aspect of our community. We know that there is issues of addiction. We know that, let's say, for example, in parts of the UK, let's say parts of Birmingham, parts of London, Southall, Ilford, the members of the Sikh community, the Punjabis, they can get embroiled in crimes or even just kind of laddish groups, which sometimes there's nothing wrong with them at all. I make a frequent in these kind of groups at all, but if we can channel that kind of energy from a young age into things like sports, particularly martial arts, I think that would really change the dynamic of our community. I have to give a massive shout out to the group Lions MMA and also Lions Reign MMA. The work that they do is unbelievably fantastic. From a young age, they're getting people within our community to become more disciplined, to become fitter. And from personal experience, I know these are the things that will help keep people on the right track and away from addiction and away from just really wasting time. And when you make the most of yourself physically, then it often goes hand in hand with doing it mentally. And then going on to the other side, so the first was that we need to, if there's a crisis, is that we're not focusing enough on our kind of fitness and especially our martial fitness and our martial mentality perhaps. And I think we could do more in those areas by supporting groups like Lions MMA and Lions Reign MMA, two very similar sounding name groups, but different groups, I believe. And second part of that would of course be the Prachar, which I probably going to get shouted at by the Basics of Sikhi guys for mentioning second, but I don't place it second. It's just right there with it. It should go hand in hand, but we need to do more work in Prachar so people are comfortable in their Sikhi and they understand that your politics can be framed by your Sikhi, not your Sikhi is framed by your politics, or anything, your philosophies, your ideologies, whatever. Your Sikhi has it all for us. All of those aspects that will shape in a way where I guarantee, especially anyone that self-identifies as a Sikh, there's going to be no aspect of Sikhi, as much as you learn it and of course practice it, where you're going to feel that it's going to pull you away from something that you might feel like your politics, or something that you might feel more in tune with. That's not going to happen. Your Sikhi is only going to strengthen it. So we need more Prachar. If there's a crisis in a Pant, it's not enough Prachar, especially for diaspora people like me who have terrible Punjabi and so forth, and there's not enough focus on fitness. I just want to quickly touch on from a media perspective, because we are of course a media organization, the Sikh Press Association. If there is a crisis, it's it's just that we can't we have a very very big workload. Even by me doing something like this, there's probably lots of people I'm angering because I haven't got back to them about certain messages, and missing probably some situation that's happened within the month that we could be working on from a news perspective. So we need to start investing in our month. We need to start realizing that as the Everything's 13 team have started and really revolutionized our month in doing that, if you invest in people, if you invest in our Sikh community, literally if we look to invest rather than in buildings now in specific people, use their skills to put them in a specific role that will benefit the community, that's how we will move forward. Because in this day and age, I think it's too difficult to rely on things solely as seva. It might be okay for certain things, like this, for example, langar seva is quite simple, as in it's logistically very difficult, and that's not to downplay what anyone's doing, but it's a different role, for example, that perhaps can be done on a voluntary basis. But even then, I'm sure there's people within those longer term groups that would say the logistics of it is so hard that we need a full-time manager and so forth. And I guarantee, that would benefit their operation. So that's perhaps what we should be doing when it comes to kind of crises in the month, to support organizations like the Sikh Press Association. And this is just from a perspective of the work that I do. So forgive me for anyone that feels I've kind of been insulting in any of my answers there. Next question. If there's 100 people on... Okay, I have no idea what that message is about in the chat. We'll ignore that. Okay, challenges faced when dealing with the wider public. Quite a broad question. Challenges faced when dealing with the broader public. Mainly that people don't know a lot about Sikhi. Mainly that, let's give you an example specific to the media. If any of my Everything's 13 Sangat are watching, we have a troll in the chat, and if somebody could perhaps try, and I don't know if it is possible to boot him out, or let's just ignore him. But moving forward, back to that question. So challenges faced when dealing with the wider public. From a media perspective, I'll give you an example. When it was Gurpurb 550, last November, we had a major international media organization come forward for one of their main staple shows and say that they wanted to cover Guru Nanak 550, and they said, can you organize us a Sikh brass band to come and play on our show to commemorate Guru Nanak's 550th anniversary upon this earth? And that to me just showed a real lack of understanding about anything to do with Sikhi. I mean, a brass band, what's that got to do with Sikhi? What's that got to do with Guru Nanak? Do Sikh brass bands even exist? I know there was like a band from Malaysia that won some awards. I think that was what was in their head. But some people just have really no idea about Sikhi, about what Sikhi is about. So when challenges faced when dealing with the wider public, it's just the lack of understanding about Sikhi. It's the lack of understanding about, why would an organization that they see as perhaps kind of, very nice and even Western, like the Sikh Press Association, why would we support Sikhs wearing the Qurban? Well, that's Sikhi. We're not even supporting it. That just is Sikhi. So, challenges faces this lack of understanding. And sometimes, that translates into a lack of caring. So let's say back to the Jaggi situation. I don't want to talk about it too much and just let it take over. I'd be happy to do something specific again. But challenges faced when dealing with the wider public is that if they don't know about your faith or your community, then sometimes they just don't care. So we have to find the right angle to make them feel like, this is something that affects you too, which is, the case with, for example, the easiest thing I can think of there is Langar Week. When you're feeding the public, you're also exposing the fact that there is a crisis going on. In the UK, I believe, since 2010 up to now, we've gone from a few 100,000 people using food banks to 1.5 million, I believe it's up to now. So that work kind of exposes a bigger issue that the wider public would be more inclined to kind of think, okay, that affects us, so we see why, what the Sikhs are doing is important to us now. So those are some of the challenges faced when dealing with the wider public. For everyone tuning in now, I'm currently answering questions that were sent in on Instagram. I'm going to have a look at the chat again and see if there are any other questions I've missed. Nope. Okay, so I'll just carry on with the questions that were sent to us on Instagram. I hope everyone that was on Instagram, that asked these questions on Instagram gets to watch, because we did want to answer all your questions. Okay, a question. I want to know about the LGBTQ community in Sikhi. Not really a question for us to answer, simply because there's groups out there that could give you real experiences. For example, SikhPA Sikhs. If you go on Twitter, I know that they're active on SARBAT 6 SIKHS. You can find them, and they're a group that are very active in on this topic, and they can relay to you some experiences. If you're talking about from a kind of faith and even theological, not the appropriate word, but the only one I can think of right now, theological perspective, there are videos by groups like Basics of Sikhi on this topic, and the likes of Carl Publishers have produced articles on this topic. So there's content out there. It's not our space to speak about experiences which are not our own, which are very specific to the LGBTQ community, so they can answer that. And perhaps we would happy to give them a shout out. Do check out SikhPA Sikhs for more information on that question. Okay, I'm just going to check again. Any other questions? No questions further. So just still answering the questions from Instagram. Roadmap. Do you have a roadmap to elevate the exposure of Sikhs in a positive light? Do we have a roadmap? Yes, we do have a roadmap. The roadmap that was laid out by Jagraj Singh in terms of how we can do this is simply by using what we already have in the Sikh community, and either kind of reformatting it in a way to make it more media friendly. For example, Langar Week. Just to explain the concept of Langar Week. Of course, we have Langar. Langar is a great way to reflect kind of Sikh philosophy, and also kind of seva. Brilliant reflection of what our faith is all about. Just one aspect of it, that is. And by doing Langar Week, we try to kind of package that all into 1 week of media coverage. So it's easier for media to kind of pick up, and it's easier for Sangat to coordinate. And it makes everyone else's story bigger. If you're all doing something at the same time, then it makes the story much bigger than if people were just doing things at different junctures. So that's an example of kind of the roadmap towards more positive light on the Sikh community. And then also things like Vaisakhi, what we're doing on Vaisakhi, what we're doing on Diwali, what we're doing for our Gurpurb anniversaries, or to celebrate our Shahidi dates, anniversaries. We just want to focus a light on what is already going on. So that's what we're about here, just focusing a light on what is already going on. And that is our roadmap. What is already happening in the Sikh community, we follow that map, and we direct the media spotlight onto that. In terms of specifics, it's quite hard to get into specifics about kind of how we want to expose more positive light on the Sikh community, because every situation is different, every scenario is different. Okay, next question from Instagram. Why, in your opinion, has Jaggi been in prison for so long, and a lay person, nothing has been done for his release? Is it diplomatically things are failing, or is it national interest and not a high agenda? Okay, so basically a question about the case of Jagtar Singh Johal. From our perspective, we would just relay what is being said by the campaign team and what is being said by Jaggi's MP, Martin Doherty Hughes, MP of, I believe it's Dunbarton Shire, or Dunbarton in Scotland. And that's that the UK is sacrificing Jaggi, I guess, for their trade relationship with India. And furthermore, so yeah, that's from his MP. And furthermore, there's just a lack of will to care about the plight of the Sikhs. At the end of the day, I think, when it comes to the Sikh community, only the Sikh community care about the Sikh community. So why has he been in prison for so long? Partly because our government doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize their relationship when it comes to trade with India, partly because the people in that framework of the government. There's very few that care. I do have to say, I know that Dhanmanjit Singh Desi and Preet Kaur Gill have been pushing it. I've seen that myself personally through various channels, but there perhaps isn't enough people that just care about the plight of the Sikh community. I think that what a good way to kind of push this would be people that are directing these questions towards us at the Sikh Press Association, perhaps direct these questions towards our representative groups. So we have various representative groups nowadays. We have the Sikh Tory. This is in the UK, by the way, because obviously the UK government is going to do the most for a UK citizen, but this might reflect across internationally, so take that on board. But we have Sikh Tories, we have Sikhs for Labour, we have Sikh Assembly, we have Sikh Council. I won't say the Sikh Federation because they've been leading the charge when it comes to the Jaggi case. They don't need reminding. The network of Sikh organizations, we have the British Sikh Consultative Forum. This is like 5 or 6 different groups I've just mentioned that are kind of in leadership and government engagement positions. The questions that you ask to us about Jaggi should also go to them, and that might help kind of, prompt further and better dialogue on this situation. Okay, let's move to the next question. Sorry, we just cut because I had coming in from Sambi and Sangat. Please don't call during this this YouTube live right now, if you are watching. Motivation. How do you stay motivated? A really good question from one of our Sangat from the Everything's 13 team. How do we stay motivated? I think the inspiration of the good Sikhs around us keeps us motivated. Because it can be hard to stay motivated because you get so many requests coming in, so many similar topics. We've been inundated, for example, with people that want help publicizing their seva for the pandemic so they can get more support and help more people, and that's fantastic. We're happy to do something like that. It just can become repetitive, and to stay motivated on that, we just have to look at the situation and be inspired by those actions by Guru Sikhs. I think being part of Everything 13 and being connected with Basics of Sikhi, who are such an inspirational organization, is also very motivational, and that just helps keep us on track. And also recognizing we work for the Bant, we work for a vision that was created by the great Bhai Jagraj Singh, and he used to tell us directly, you work for Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj. So these kind of things we just can remind ourselves of, and it can keep us motivated. Good question though, thank you for asking that. We've gone from like 250 viewers to 15 in just a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to have a quick scan and make sure nothing strange is going on regarding our live and so forth. If any, okay. Just checking that nothing strange is going on since we've been jumping around in the terms of numbers of people watching this. Okay, just getting back to the questions now. Do we have any other questions? I don't think so. Are we still live? Let me just make sure I'm refreshing my page. Are we still live? Okay, we're all good. Sorry, just going to carry on. Questions that we received from Instagram and Facebook. Do we plan to expand? Something I touched on earlier. Yes, we plan to expand. We do want to have a press officer in every country where there's a Sikh community. Simple as that. Every single country. That's the ambition that was laid out by Jagraj Singh. He's got a speech that we'll share later today where he talks about this. And we want to ensure that the tool that the Sikh Press Association is there for every single person in the Sikh Qawm. So we do want to expand. If anyone thinks they can help us with that, then do get in touch. Okay, a specific question about representation and the current UK task force that is working with the UK government about reopening Gurdwara. They've gone quite specific. This question is on our Facebook in a comment, so you can see it for yourself. I won't repeat everything because I don't want to kind of get embroiled in, specific accusations. All I would say about this, the question is there a risk in the people that are representing the UK government on the task force right now? Is there a risk in their representation when it comes to kind of Gurdwara's reopening and discussions on faith? All I can say on this is, from my perspective, working for 5 years with the Sikh community at a grassroots level, if I was asked who should we speak, who should anyone speak to when it comes to kind of the running of Gurdwaras, which includes Satkar, which means the basics of kind of how you run a Gurdwara, and who should you speak to about Gurdwara's reopening and to get wider messages out there for Gurdwara across the UK, I would always say the Sikh Council. I would speak to Gyani Sukhjeevan Singh, also known for his work with Sikh to Inspire, and I would direct any kind of conversations like this towards him. That's their role. Not just the other week, they had a online Zoom meeting which had 90 different representatives. That's 90. That's a huge amount to be having a conversation with. That shows they have a big, broad reach, and for that to be ignored, I think you're just not doing the topic the justice it should be. And also, again, just from the perspective that these people, not only do they know Gurdwara representatives, but they know how to run Gurdwara. They know what is best for Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj and doing their seva. So those are the people that I personally, and at the Sikh Press Association as the organisation, would always point people towards when it comes to discussions about Gurdwara's reopening or Gurdwara management. Why don't you cover Punjab and India? A very direct question. I think that, again, from Instagram. My first answer to that is we do cover Punjab and India. We do regularly. Is it enough? No, it's definitely not enough. And we can put our hands up and say that because we want to do more. And there is so much that we could be working on from those areas. But I think the bottom line is we just have a really small team at the minute. We've never had more than 2 staff at any given time, and there's just so much to work on. And the fact that we're based in the UK means that we're going to focus on UK topics and diaspora topics, because we are here for the sorry, I just keep getting phone calls on WhatsApp, so I'm just gonna send a message. I'm just sending a message to calling. Please don't call. Okay, I'm just going back. Sorry about that interruption. Keep getting WhatsApp calls. I'm asking Sangat not to call right now. Okay, where was I? I was speaking about covering Punjab. Yeah, so it's just something that is difficult. And the thing is about covering stories from Punjab and India, the way media cover them isn't often the easiest to kind of unpack. So it involves a lot of research all the time, really. What I would say though is Sikh Siyasat news, they are absolutely fantastic. They do great work. Often we just share what they're already doing. So do go and support them. They are by far the best and a really vital tool for our Sikh community. Sikh Siyasat news, just shoot us a message if you want to know their tags. SIKH, I believe is SIY. You know what, I'm not even going to attempt to spell it without looking, but Sikh Siyasat News, do follow them for information from Punjab and India. They do great work. Paramjit Singh really is an inspiration for us as well. And you can definitely get news from them, but we do want to do more in Punjab and India. And, it is difficult for many reasons, which, we'll take another hour to talk about. Next question from Instagram, why aren't Sikhs getting more coverage for our seva? Getting enough coverage, is the question asked. Why aren't Sikhs getting enough coverage for our seva? I mean, the question then is, what is enough? Because right now, I actually feel like there is lots and lots of coverage. There's so much that we can't even keep up with sharing it. let alone facilitating it. And we've been facilitating loads. And a lot of what we have organized and arranged doesn't even end up making it onto our social media, just because, following it up and taking the time out to share it falls behind us, because we're onto the next story and we're onto the next story. So there is lots of coverage out there, especially right now, about the efforts of the Sikh community, from Thailand to Australia to all over the US to the UK, of course, Canada, everywhere. There's a Sikh community. There seems to be stories in Norway. We shared a new story from Norway about what the Sikh community is doing. So is that enough? It just depends on your perspective. From our perspective, there could never be enough positive stories on the Sikh community. And if there isn't more being done, I think it's just because we need to become more media savvy. The Sikh Press Association is here to help. We want Sikh organizations to go out and connect with the media and take the time out to build that relationship with the media, and we can of course help advise you in that area. So that could be why, if you think there's not enough coverage of Sikh Seva, perhaps that could be why. At the same time, have a look though, there's quite a lot out there. Will Sikh PA, next question from Instagram, will Sikh PA partner with Gurdwaras to be their PR voice? I touched on this earlier, but 150% yes, we are happy to be a PR voice for any Gurdwara, and that we're a tool of the Panth. So any Sikh organization, whether it's a Gurdwara committee or anyone else that wants to work with us to engage with the community, just get in touch. We're here to work with you and work for you. Accomplishments is an interesting question, because I guess it reflects what we feel is important. I know there's another similar question somewhere in here about this, so I'll just say a few. We shared a picture of Sikh PA's campaign Langar Week trending second only to X Factor. That means at one point on Twitter it was the second most talked about thing in the UK after X Factor. X Factor is a reality TV show where we're featuring Simon Cowell. Hopefully a lot of you people know that name, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's a very popular show, and to be second behind that and above other very popular kind of TV shows and topics as a talking point was a big accomplishment. And I think campaigns like Langar Week, I'll give a quick story about how they have impacted the community. After the first ever Langar Week, we received, I think Basics of Sikhi received a message. I think it was from someone in Slough. I don't receive these messages, I don't check them, so it wasn't me that got the message. But it was a brother, a singer, Sardar, who was saying that he was walking down his local high street, and after Langar Week had just finished, and an old man approached him and said, "Are you Sikh?" No, he said, "You are Sikh, right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm Sikh." And he pulled out some money and he said, "I want you to take this to carry on feeding people like you guys do. That's great work." So that's the kind of ground level impact when we talk about accomplishments, that we hear about, that make us feel like, okay, the work that we're doing is impacting the grassroots. Furthermore, there have been kind of, various things like where Sikh groups have been attacked for this, that, or the other, and we have helped them kind of deal with the media fallout from that. Accomplishments as well, thinking about just kind of helping people, even inspiring other Sikh groups to start their seva. So from Langar Week, there have been a few groups that started a one-off seva of providing langar in their town centre just to join in with the efforts, and they've ended up carrying on that seva for continuously, and that's it, just become a seva organisation. So kind of these, it's a great accomplishment to bring people closer to their Sikhi by getting them engaged in seva and showing them how easy it is for them to carry out seva. And there is another question about accomplishments that I'll expand on in a second. The spark that started the Sikh Press Association, that is a very good question. The spark there's a story that I have heard from our Basics of Sikhi team. I believe Sukhmani Kaur or Bourbon Singh actually said this, and I hope that they won't mind me saying it too, about the spark that started Sikh PA. I think after Bhai Jugraj Singh had passed, people were kind of, going through his things and putting them away where appropriate. And I think they stumbled upon something he'd written when he was at university, and he was just like 18 or 19 years old when he had started getting into Sikhi in the early days. And he'd written a list of things that he wanted to do for the Sikh Qaum. And on that list was a Sikh media organization, a Sikh media outlet, something like that. So that was probably like 15 years before the Sikh Press Association was even discussed in some sort of public realm. So the spark that started the Sikh Press Association, 150%, is the visionary Bhai Jugraj Singh. It was all him. It was his idea, and then the person that took that spark and turned it into a raging flame, into the machine that we are now, is Rupinder Kaur. So Rupinder Kaur had that expertise. She sat down with Bhai Jugraj Singh. She helped him bring his vision to life. So the spark that started Sikh PA was definitely Bhai Jugraj Singh, and Rupinder Kaur, our co-founder, helped him kind of fan the flames for that spark. Best thing you have achieved, similar to the accomplishments question. The person who asked this question, I know why they asked it. I know why. So I'm personally a massive sports fan, especially boxing, MMA, and football, soccer to the Americans that might be watching. And for years upon years, there has been a beard ban on amateur boxing. So that obviously prevents Sikhs from taking part. Now, shout out to Pardeep Singh Nagra, who in, I believe, 1999 or 2000, a Sikh Canadian flyweight regional champion as an amateur, he forwent any opportunity he may have had to go to the Olympics to instead fight a battle to be allowed to fight with keeping his kers, keeping his dari, keeping his beard. And he got that amateur boxing's beard ban overturned in Canada. And that was something that was pushed towards Sikh PA to help to do by the group Lions MMA, who I've mentioned before, fantastic organization. We worked with guys like Pacharak and lawyer Amandeep Singh from East London, Dr. Harbir Singh, and we worked together to get the beard ban overturned in the UK. So in UK amateur boxing, there's no longer a beard ban, and that means that basically you can have a career, the standard and appropriate career in boxing, which is having a proper amateur career and then going on to have a professional career in the UK. And for me, that was massive. That personally meant a lot. I then went to the first ever fight of an Amritdhari Sikh in amateur boxing who had a beard, quite young person, so he didn't have a big beard, Charanpal Singh, and he won by knockout in the first round. And that's probably my best sporting memory ever, and best event I've ever been to. The crowd was amazing. There's a lot of Sangat there to support him. And so overturning the beard ban in UK boxing is one of the best achievements that I've personally feel I've been part of ever. And the thing is, we just need to take it forward. There's the beard ban is still there in boxing, in amateur boxing in India. It's still there in the United States. That's where Sikhs are practicing boxing, and we need to get involved and we need to help overturn them. So get in touch if you think you can help. Who inspires you and why? Who inspires us, I touched on earlier, is definitely the Guru Sikhs that we're so lucky to be surrounded by. From the Pacharaks at basics of Sikhi and the behind the scenes Guru Sikhs that do the video editing or project managing or anything like that, to the Sevadars of so many various organizations that we work with. These are inspirations because at the end of the day, what they do is inspiring. It's amazing. So all we want to do is shine a light on the inspiring work that they do, and that can't help but inspire us. And of course, I've mentioned so many times, but by Jugraj Singh, you just feel in awe of being part of his vision and his drive, which has done so much and changed the world really. Where will we be in 5 years from now? I did touch on this question earlier, but just again, I'm answering questions from Instagram for anyone wondering. Where will we be in 5 years from now? We want to have full-time, fully employed press officers in Canada, Australia, and America. that can act as a tool for the Sangat there, for the community there. And we also want to be producing more content. We want to be able to empower our filmmakers, our writers, our artists to be going out and producing content for the benefit of the Bant. That's where we want to be in 5 years from now. So for the last 5 years, we've set a foundation of how we work and what we can do. And 5 years from now, we just want to be doing more of it across the world. Next question from Instagram, do we do due diligence before sharing news? Sorry, I think I need another sip of my drink. Do we do due diligence before sharing news? Yes, we do. So you will find that sometimes if you look at our stories, on certain stories, we cover them later. The story might break, and unless we've been able to analyze a story the way we want, we will not cover it on the same day it might break. We might look at it from a position of here's the Sikh community's reaction to it, or this is what's happened since. So that's our way of doing due diligence, by making sure that kind of we are including the work of the Sikh community in any of our coverage of a story, and at the same time we are trying our best to speak to those involved in the story. So we're doing it from their perspective, and there's of course more that could be done. For example, someone came forward just the other day about Seva that's happening during the pandemic, and said some of the coverage that Sikh PA are doing is causing conflict, because it shouldn't happen, but it does happen. But there's people that are kind of battling each other for, I guess, the praise or the kudos of doing that seva, which at the end of the day, we don't have control of that. We have a specific role in the media that is about kind of promoting positive Sikh news stories. That's just one aspect of it, and we're getting paid to do that, so we're going to do that. If that happens to make any conflict, we could perhaps do more. We are more than open to speaking to community groups about how best to navigate these situations, to do it in a way that it doesn't cause any issue, but they need to come forward to us, because at the minute we're just playing our role. But again, we are more than open to other ways of dialogue which will help us do our due diligence before sharing any news. I'm just going back to see any questions that might have come through. I'm just keeping an eye on the questions on our YouTube live, and making sure. I'm not sure why the questions went so far. Okay, sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on people dropping in and out on questions. I'm just going back to the Instagram questions again. I'll end this by going through all of the questions that have come through on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm making sure we answer all of those. Can you help Sikhs regain faith in Gurdwaras that are known to be corrupt? Again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what is asked. We have to be honest and say, there are constant stories of corruption in Gurdwaras. A lot of money goes through Gurdwaras, so I guess this is just kind of normal, and this has been the case since way, way, way before Sikh PA ever existed, and it will be the case in the future. How to regain faith? I guess if Gurdwaras want to reach out and connect with us and get advice about being more transparent in any way, or even just engaging with the Sangat, so there's not kind of a distance between those that run a Gurdwara and those that are Sangat. There should be a real connection. They should feel like they're one and the same. We'd happily help advise areas where that kind of public perception can be changed and Gurdwaras can connect more. But at the same time, Sikh PA, we're not an organization that is here to fight Gurdwara corruption, and that is something that's beyond our remit, and I don't think we're ever going to be able to change corruption in any area where there's a lot of money. There's always going to be some corruption or accusations of corruption. So I mean, we have to focus on our role. I think that's one thing that's important within the Sikh community, within the Sikh Panth. Everyone should know what your role is specifically if you're working for the Panth. There's cannot be groups or individuals that are say they're doing something for the Panth without being specific about their role. And when it comes to Sikh PA, we have to focus on our role. That's what we're paid to do. Can you raise the issue of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's throne? It needs to come back to Punjab. Interesting question there. Basically, this touches upon a whole load of issues about Sikh artifacts that belong in the hands of the Sikh community, whether that's in Punjab or elsewhere. The bottom line for Sikh PA is we're not an activist organization. If there are groups that are doing this, if you want to go out and organize and just try and mobilize the Sikh community into being active on whether it's taking back artifacts, or people have spoken to us before about campaigns to have the remains of Dalip Singh brought back to India. That's for the Sangat to do. That's for you guys to do, and then come to speak to us about your campaigns. We're not going to run those campaigns. We're not going to make something an issue that isn't already an issue. We're just going to pick up on what the Sikh community are doing. We're not going to push the Sikh community into doing something. We are, again, just focusing on our role. So when it comes to this kind of thing, raise the issue of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's throne being in the UK and not in Punjab. That's for someone else to raise, and then the Sikh PA can publicize what they're doing about that situation. So hopefully we're clear on that. Next question on Instagram. What does the process of writing a news article look like? So I have a degree in journalism. I've written for various publications, from like men's magazines to local newspapers, regional newspapers, to international news organizations online. And it can be very different. It depends on the type of article. Are you writing a feature article, which is something that's more could be comical or from a perspective of human interest or opinion based, or are you writing something which is a factual news report? You have to differentiate what the topic is and what your aims are, firstly, in regards to what type of article you're writing. And then you have to set a structure of what points you want to make. And the inverted pyramid style of journalistic reporting is what I was taught, and I think that's the best way to write news report articles. But at the same time, everyone has their own unique style of writing, so try and tap into that. But the main thing is, when it comes to the process of writing a news article, is setting out that structure of making your points coherently. And you do have to be concise. Remember, there's a difference between an article and an essay. You're not writing a novel here, so you have to set out that structure and just try your best to be concise. And you have to really plot out what's the most important part of the story, what's the second most important part of the story, the who, what, where, why, when. That all needs to be included. So hopefully, again, we run media workshops. We can get into this on a deeper level about writing news articles. So just get in touch if you want more help on that. Email us at media@sikhpa.com. Has the mainstream approached us for advice? Yes, the mainstream approaches us for advice all the time. Sometimes our advice means that they don't even go ahead with what they're trying to do. And I have to give one example because it shows you the levels of what we have to deal with, I guess. We had a production company approach us not long ago saying they wanted to do a documentary following the journey of a young Sikh that was thinking about cutting their guests. They wanted to put them into contact with famous Sikhs that could advise them. And I don't think they understood how sensitive an issue that is, or understood how important an issue that is. And I think shining a spotlight on such a situation is really just not the way at all that we would think is best to deal with the situation as a Sikh organization, and just unhelpful for the young. They said they want the person to be 16 or under as well. So when it comes to advice, yes, we gave some very harsh advice to them, to production companies that came forward with such an idea that this is just ridiculous and callous. It's like, following a young Jewish person and that is contemplating eating pork and shining a spotlight on them and that kind of issue that they're having and dilemma. And yes, so that's, we're always giving advice. Sometimes they will just approach us for advice and say, we want to cover this story, who should we speak to? And again, we'll point them towards the right direction. So the media always regularly approach us for advice on many different topics. And so yes, the mainstream media does approach us for advice. Is there a next question on Instagram? Is there a genuine positive response from media? It depends what you're talking about, but yes, if we were talking about the Sikh Press Association, is there a genuine positive response from media? There is, because essentially what we're doing is helping them get content. The job of the media is to provide content to the masses, and we do a lot of the legwork for them, so they're really happy with that a lot of the time. There are times, of course, when they're not happy, when we're telling them they've done something wrong or they shouldn't be doing this, or a brass band has nothing to do with Guru Nanak, or you shouldn't be trying to turn the spotlight on any young Sikhs that are thinking about cutting the case and trying to turn it into some sort of documentary media story. Then they might feel like the Sikh Press Association can be quite an obstacle in their objectives to cover a story within the Sikh community. But at the end of the day, we work for the Panth, we work for the Qawm, we don't work for the media. Our job is to work for the Panth. And so by and large, yes, there's a positive response from media on the work that we do, but of course sometimes we can be in conflict. What is your strategy, again from Instagram, what is your strategy for dealing with misconceptions about Sikhs and Sikhi? Our strategy is just to provide the truth. Our strategy is to direct people towards our educated Gursikhs, our Pracharaks, our historians, our anyone that's working in a way that understands the Sikh community and Sikhi, and let them take these platforms that are important to take when we're talking about perceptions of the Sikh community and Sikhi. So that's our strategy for dealing with misconceptions, is providing the truth as well. We're lucky that as the Sikh Press Association, we work with Basics of Sikhi so closely. Therefore, we have, as an organization, access to unlimited knowledge from great Pracharaks and Guru Sikhs that they work with, and not just with Basics of Sikhi, with various groups. There's the guys at Sikh Educational Council, the Sikh Council, Sikh to Inspire, National Sikh Youth Federation, so many groups that I could name that, they are happy to help the Sikh Press Association deal with any misconceptions about Sikhs and Sikhi. So that's our strategy, is just to point people towards people that are knowledgeable and just give them the truth. Next question, Jagraj Shokha. I understand Sikh PA wants to spread the word, but what is your strategy getting it to everyone's device? Okay, specific question for everyone's device. Interesting question. I guess that's about creating good content that will turn viral, and that's something that we strive to do. It takes actually a lot of time to come up with something and really refine something, whether it be a video or even just a graphic, something that will spread far and wide. But I know that we've created graphics with our designers and our video editors that have been shared by tens of thousands of people. We've had videos that have been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. So our strategy is to create good content, essentially, and that will end up going viral and that will get to people's devices. But it's a job in itself. Doing that alongside writing articles, doing research, and being a sounding board for Sangat when it comes to kind of Sikh issues, those are kind of very different areas. So we would like to focus more on what you're talking about and helping to create things that go viral and end up in everyone's device, so they learn more about Sikhi or Sikh situations. And we have so many ideas. It's just about spending that time to go out and work on these things, and I do have to give a shout out to the amazing video editors that we work with at Basics of SikhPA, the Everything 13 team. Harinder Singh, Gurcharan Singh, Harjinder Singh, Anup Singh, Preetcharan Singh, Iqbal Singh from back in the day. Fantastic creators that help us bring things to life, designers and creators. What do you need as an organization to expand? This is from YouTube. What do you need as an organization to expand other than funding? How can Sangat help with this? It is very difficult to say anything other than funding, because that then takes us into an area of trying to do things through Seva. And through Seva, that requires a lot of management. It requires a lot of trust. It requires people to be available. We're talking about working in the world of media. Like I said, news stories come and go like that. So it is difficult. Outside of funding, then, just to be specific, we need people that can understand exactly what we're trying to do and do their research on the Sikh Press Association and how we work, and then say, look, I see you guys do this, I can replicate that for you, and I can take a project for you and I can run with it and carry on with it in my own time. There has been many occasions, this is not to kind of admonish anyone for their actions, but there's been so many occasions, so many, when people have come forward to the Sikh Press Association and said, we can do Seva for you, we want to do Seva, and I've given them a task, or someone's given them a task, and they just haven't followed through with it because they're doing it as Seva. And Seva is seen as, it's not just selfless service, it's voluntary service, and it's voluntary to some people in the sense that they can volunteer their time or not. So they get these tasks and they don't follow through with them, and that means that there has been times where perhaps there's probably a few servitors watching that being like, well, I've reached out to you and you didn't get back to me. And that's part of the reason why, because we haven't had much success in this area of people carrying things out through to the end as Seva. And it just seems that this world that we work in now, funding is so important. We do really need to invest in people. We need to invest in our own community and have people working full-time for a community, rather than going out there and working for the corporations or working for businesses or doing other things. We should invest in people working for our Qawm. I think that there are many things that we still need to spend money on, but at the same time, I think sometimes there's money being spent on things which aren't going to be as impacting. And I hate to kind of make anyone feel bad about anything that they're doing, but I'll just give one example. We're spending in the UK close to £500,000 on a war memorial to the Sikhs that fought in World War I and World War II. Perhaps it would be better to, that could hire staff at Sikh PA for a long time, put it that way, and we could do a lot of work on that topic itself if we hired someone as staff using that kind of money. Sorry for anyone that feels offended by me saying that, but I just have to give our perspective on these things. Next question from YouTube. What are the steps that you guys need to take in order to become a mainstream media large channel? We just need to grow. We just need more people. We need more staff. We've never had more than 2 staff working for us at any one time. We just need more people. I've been doing this for 5 years now. It's probably a good time for me to take a step back and just be working in a way where I'm perhaps doing more management, more advice, more consultancy, and directing people to work in the right way. So we just need a bigger team. Alka's Core's last question was about, other than funding. I guess then, if we're going to be looking at this as Seva, people need to understand what that entails and how important that job is. Because if I'm relying on someone to cover a certain story and it doesn't get covered immediately, then that story might be lost, and that might be an important story. And there's usually time and energy invested in that, whether that be from Sangat or whether that be from ourselves, or usually both. So yeah, we just need to build our team wide, and people need to understand what that entails, and they need to be willing to take on board how to work as well. Because the final thing I'll say on that is, a lot of people come forward thinking that the solution or their vision of seva for Sikh PA is them just writing an article on their own opinion. Here's my opinion on this aspect of Sikhi or that aspect of Sikhi, and here's my argument to this or that. Unless you're a well-known, studied Gur Sikh that is being called to do talks in Gurdwaras and Sikh societies and wherever else, or you're part of an organization that is doing exactly that, I don't see. You need to understand that your opinion, rather than anything else, but your opinion, even if it's your interpretation of something, that is not necessarily news for Sikh PA to pick up. So just bear that in mind as well. Okay, just going back to the questions. Yeah, so I'll answer that question about becoming bigger. We just need a bigger team. Going back to the question on Instagram, we've done this for nearly an hour and a half now, so I'll try and finish off. Okay, the question on Instagram. Okay, this is the last question actually that's come through Instagram. Is your content, it's a really good question actually, so well done to the person who asked this, because it shows an understanding of how the Sikh Press Association works. Is your content intended to be related to actions related to key values of Sikhi, e.g. example seva, or is it for Sikhs who do good for substantial actions by Sikhs, e.g. example being promoted to a new role in a business? So just to summarize that question, what they're asking is, do we just promote Sikhs as a whole, or do we promote Sikh values when it comes to what we push to the media? And it's 100% Sikh values, so Sikh philosophy. We are approached quite often by somebody who'll say, I'm a wealthy Sikh businessman, and I've made a lot of money doing my entrepreneurial stuff, and perhaps you should write about me and what I've done, write about this Sikh. They've become the CEO of this big bank or this big tech company or something. And we pretty much all the time reject those stories, because your success in this, in the worldly aspect, may not actually reflect Sikhi. We need you to actually say in your own words and explain to us in your own words how Sikhi has influenced you in your journey, and then it will be something that we can push. A good example is the athletes that we work with, for example. So there's, Guru Kirpa, we're in a day and age now where we have quite a few Sikh athletes of various kinds or in various sports. The ones that we work with and the ones that we support and the ones that we push, I'll name a couple, Arjun Singh Bulla, Inder Singh Bassi, and Karanjit Kaur Bains. Arjun Singh Bulla, the MMA fighter, Inder Singh Bassi, the boxer, and Karanjit Kaur Bains, the powerlifter. These are the athletes that, of their own accord, say, my Sikhi or Sikhi itself inspires me in my endeavors in sport. What I do, the way I want to break barriers, the way I want to be an example of athletic success from the Sikh community, that is for the community, that is to inspire others, and it is because of my Sikhi. So those are the athletes that we support. We aren't just going to support any old athlete because they have a Punjabi Sikh name. They have to actively show us, just like whether it be in business or art or any other field, even in charity endeavors, that they are doing this in relation to their Sikh values and being inspired by Sikhi. Just one final example on that, for example, is the charity Binti. Binti are a charity that work on menstrual dignity, as they put it, and that's helping women across the world get access to the kind of products that they need for their periods. I'm not quite well versed on this topic, so sorry if I've put it wrong. But Binti are a charity that's the area that they work in. Now that directly does not have anything to do with Sikhi itself. But the charity is run by this amazing woman called Manjeet Kaur, and the work that she does, she directly says all the time, it is inspired by Sikhi, it's inspired by the teachings of Guru Nanak to elevate and bring equality to women across the world. So, they're not put in a position where they're considered unclean for whatever reason. And that's why we will support, and we have supported and will always support a charity like Binti, because the founder of that charitable organization, the work that they do, she directly attributes it to her Sikhi. So in relation to this question about whether we support just Sikhs or Sikh values, it's definitely always Sikh values. We want to show, that where there are Sikhs, they're carrying on that tradition of social reform that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj started. Okay, I think, that's the last question on Instagram and YouTube. I'm just going to have a quick look if there's anything on Twitter. Nothing. Any questions? Maybe WhatsApp. Okay, I think that's the end of our questions. So hour and a half, more than long enough to hear from me rambling on. We'll call it a day. I'll just have one quick final look at Facebook, see if there's any questions from there. I'm not even on the right page. Whoops. Sorry, I'm just seeing if there's any final questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Anyone, the few people watching on YouTube, if you are, do you have any questions? Yes, no questions on Facebook either. Just having the last check on the Sikh Press Association's page. Fix this. Sorry, I just have to get access to my computer. Leaning my phone up against it. Okay, do we have any questions on Facebook? No. Okay, so we'll call it a day there. Hour and a half, answered as many questions as I could. If you do have any other questions, if you want to, quite a few questions on Jaggi, for example, and you'd like something specifically on that topic or any other topic, please just reach out, get in touch, and we'd be happy to discuss anything further. Transparency is very, very important to us at the Sikh Press Association, whether it be, how we work, our funding, the topics we cover, anything like that. So just do get in touch, and we'll always try and be transparent. But that's enough from me. Just for you saying, Sikh Press Association Senior Press Officer, thank you all for your time and for your questions. Apologies for any mistakes made. Do forgive me for any mistakes made, or anyone that might be affected by anything we've said. Again, just reach out to us and we'll be happy to chat about anything further. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.